All right, so let's talk about the curriculum and what this course covers. This course is quite large, both in terms of hours, but also just in terms of the number of topics we cover. But they are all pretty essential. They all fit together and it's all structured in a very deliberate way. So here's just a rundown of some of the key topics. The course covers a lot more than this, but these are some of the most important topics. So we start by understanding how the web works, the internet, getting our developer environment set up, and then we talk about HTML and we start understanding the very basics. HTML5, all the latest in semantic HTML. We talk about accessibility. Then we move on to CSS and styling our web pages, where we learn a lot of new modern CSS. We cover things like Flexbox and layouts, CSS animation, responsive design, media queries. We talk about CSS frameworks. I will introduce different frameworks including Bootstrap and another called Boma. Then we talk about JavaScript, and this is really a big turning point in the course where we spend a lot of more time going very deep into JavaScript. For a lot of students, it's their very first time learning a programming language. So we cover all of the basics and all of the latest in JavaScript syntax. So if you've heard the terms like S6, S7 or S 2016, 17, 18, all of that stuff is covered in this course. So let, control, async, await, promises, spread destructuring. If none of that means anything to you, just ignore it. But we do cover that in this course. We also talk about DOM manipulation and how HTML, CSS, and JavaScript connect. We talk about asynchronous JavaScript, the pitfalls of async.js, but also the benefits. Potentially, we cover Ajax in making requests, working with third-party APIs. Then we start talking a bit about the backend. I introduce the terminal and different Unix commands. We talk about Node a lot, about Node and NPM. We work with a web framework called Express and we start building servers in full web apps. We talk about templating and building RESTful APIs, routing databases. We talk a bit about SQL versus NoSQL databases. We focus on MongoDB. We cover common security issues, cross-site scripting, SQL injection. We talk about deploying applications and working with cloud databases. I'll show you how to implement authentication from scratch. So we really dive into the concepts around cookies and sessions, hashing functions. We talk about password sorting, and then we focus on some fancier features like adding geocoding and mapping. Cluster maps should show you something on the screen right now so you have an idea of what I'm talking about. So there's a lot in this course, and then there are topics like schema design and design patterns for JavaScript. We talk about best practices as a developer, building a developer mindset, understanding how to get help, how to Google, very important, how to research things and find answers to things you do not know. So it's exhausting just telling you all these topics. It's a lot. Now imagine having to record all of that. It's quite an undertaking. So maybe you're feeling overwhelmed by the volume of topics and maybe none of them make sense. Maybe you are excited to get started. Either way, I promise, we start from the very, very simple beginning. You do not need to know anything coming into this other than how to use your computer. With all that said, yes, this course covers lots of fancy modern technologies and tools and languages, but all that matters, all that really matters, like the real takeaways from this course that I focus on the most are learning how to learn new frameworks, languages, and libraries, learning how to think like an engineer, learning how to ask questions or find answers to your questions online, how to unstuck yourself when you get stuck, how to build applications from scratch, and just how to become fluent in the world of web development. Those are really important pieces of curriculum, and unfortunately, those are the pieces that you can't pick up in a matter of 5 minutes or an hour video. They really take the entire course to sink in. So that's a brief overview of the crazy curriculum for this course. See you soon.